Well, what's up guys, it's Raven, and today's video is going to be my labor and delivery story. So a lot of you guys have been asking me like on my Instagram and on here, and this is a video that you guys wanted to see, so I'm doing it. Let's just hop right in with my labor and delivery story. So on Sunday, which was October 8th, my boyfriend and I went to Bishop's Pumpkin Patch, which is in Marysville, I think, or Wheatland, I don't know, somewhere over there, okay? We walked to the corn maze, we did the sunflower maze or labyrinth or whatever, and you go and you can cut like sunflowers off the vine thingies. So we just walked around a lot and did like a bunch of stuff like that. We really wanted to go to the pumpkin patch, so I'm happy that we did. So yeah, we hung out there for a few hours or whatever, and then at the end of the day we went home. We were going to sleep, normal stuff. We're laying in bed or whatever, and I usually have to pee like a few times in the night, and on Monday, which was the 9th of October, I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I wake up at 3:40, 3:30 something in the morning, and I'm like, gosh, I have to pee. So I go to get up, and all of a sudden this water comes out, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm peeing myself. So I like grab a towel and I'm running to the bathroom, probably looking like a complete weirdo, and I sit down and I start to go pee, and I'm like, wow, this is the longest pee I have ever had this whole pregnancy. Like, this is a long pee. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And it started to like slow down, and so, you know, I wiped and then got up and I tried to walk, and all of a sudden I start peeing again, and I'm like, okay, this probably isn't pee. And so by this time the towel is like drenched, so I grab a tank top and I'm going back to the room, and I'm like, hey babe, I don't know if I'm peeing myself or my water broke. And he was like in a dead sleep, and he sleeps like a rock. Like, he does not wake up for anything. And so he woke up and he said, your water broke. And he put his hand on my side of the bed and he goes, and it's wet. And I was like, oh god. It is 3:44 in the morning. Okay, this is 3:44 in the morning, and my water broke. And I just don't think it's real. Like, I'm like, no, I'm only 38 weeks in 2 days. Like, that's crazy. That it's not possible. I started calling my mom because my mom usually is up and she answers the phone if I call her if she's sleeping. So I call my mom, and he's calling his grandma, and I'm like, Mom, I don't know if my water broke, and I have his grandma on the phone and my mom, and I'm talking to two people at one time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just don't know who I'm supposed to talk to. And so I'm trying to have a conversation with two people, which is completely hard when they're not talking on the same, you know, when they're on two different phones, they don't know what each other are saying. And so let me just pause really quick. I have not had any contractions like my whole pregnancy. I had some Braxton Hicks, but I didn't have any contractions that I could feel. So I had gone into labor and delivery previously, and they said I was having contractions, but they weren't steady, so they weren't going up and down like on the meter or whatever. And so that's why they sent me home, and apparently I've been having contractions, but I just haven't been feeling them. So yeah, just to clear that up, I was having contractions but wasn't feeling them, didn't even know that I had them. So it was kind of crazy. So anyways, by this time I hang up the phone with my mom, and I'm talking to his grandma, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll put a pad on or whatever, and you can come get us. And so she comes and get us. We have all of the bags, like hospital bags, in my car. Oops, I'm throwing stuff. And so we get there, and they were hooking me up to things, seeing if, you know, I was really in labor, seeing my water broke. And I knew my water broke by this time because there was liquid dripping out of me nonstop. It was just like, felt like I was peeing myself the entire time. And so they're like, oh, we're gonna have to stick like this microscope kind of thing up to see if your like bag broke. And I was like, well, can't you just look at the liquid? Like, I know I'm, dripping. And they're like, oh, I mean, we could do that before we actually go and see if, stick the thing up there. Like, so they look and they're like, oh yeah, your bag definitely broke. So by this time, by like 4 o'clock in the morning, I am admitted into the hospital, and I was good like the whole day. I was having contractions. I tried walking around. I was doing great. And then they started giving me Pitocin. And that is to kind of like, not so much speed labor up, but it's to make your contractions happen. So it's not so much that you have to have your baby within 24 hours of your bag breaking. It's just within 24 hours, you are now immune to viruses and like bacteria and stuff. So bacteria and stuff can go and affect the baby. So yeah, I ended up, well, the lighting just changed. So they put me on Pitocin. I didn't feel anything for hours. It went all the way up to 10 because they can give you doses. They start at 2 and then they work their way up to 10. And then my contractions were so crazy that it could affect the baby, so that they turned it down because my contractions were so back to back that there was no space. So it was like affecting the baby or something, or that it could affect the baby. And so they slowed it down, then they would turn it back up eventually. And finally, I just felt like I had to go number 2. Okay, this is kind of TMI, but I was like, dude, I gotta go. And I go into the bathroom because, okay, this is just a little backstory. When you are constipated, you kind of get period cramps too. And so this like cramping feeling that I was having ended up being the contractions from the Pitocin. And so I just like felt like I needed to push it out, like push my number 2 out, if you know what I mean. Nasty, but yes. So I ended up pushing, nothing was coming out, and then I started getting this sharp pain. And usually when I get sharp pains like on my period, I just like tuck into a ball, and that relieves some of it, because my birth control ended up relieving most of my period cramps, but I'd still have a sharp pain. And so that's why I was like trying to tuck into a ball, but I couldn't because it was so big. I literally looked like a whale. And so I was like, I need something. And this whole time I did not want any medicine. I wanted to go all natural. Like I just wanted to go with the flow. I didn't want forceps. I didn't want a vacuum. I didn't want C-section. I just wanted an all natural birth. So at this point, I was in so much pain that I was like, okay, what's the least amount of medicine that you can give me? Like, what can we do? And so they gave me like this thing that goes in your IV, and you cannot walk with it. It kind of makes you a little dizzy, almost like if you were like high or something, or if you were kind of like hallucinating a little bit, or just dizzy. You just can't focus on things. You're like, whoa. So I ended up laying in bed with that, and it relieved a little bit of pain, but I could still feel every contraction from this point on. Like, it hurt so bad, and I had to wait like 30 minutes or 45 minutes before I can get more. And I'm waiting that time, and all of a sudden I was like, nope, I can't do this. Like, I'm hurting so bad. And she was like, okay, well, I can give you another dosage of the medicine I just gave you, and if you want the epidural, we can do the epidural. And I was like, I want that freaking epidural. Like, give me that epidural now. So, everybody has to go out of the room except for your partner when you're getting the epidural. So she gave me that medicine, and then the anesthesiologist, whatever they're called, the guy came in, and he's like telling me like, oh, this is the side effects, this is the risk, this is like what could happen. It could paralyze you, you can't move, and I'm doing it. Like, some scary stuff, let me tell you. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna freak out. But then the nurse is like sitting there, and I was like, can you just talk to me? Like, just talk to me. And I'm holding my boyfriend's hands like this, like squeezing as hard as I can. And he's like, oh my God, you're gonna break my hands off. And he's just like, oh, you're fine. Like, he's just talking to me, encouraging me, like, oh, babe, you're okay. Like, I love you. We're almost there. And I'm just like, oh my God, it doesn't hurt. But let me tell you, I'm just like so nervous. And then he finally like cleans the spot and he like sticks it in, and it doesn't burn or anything. Everyone says it kind of stings and stuff. It did not hurt at all, I'm telling you that. What hurt worse than the epidural was my IV that I got put in my hand. I actually had like a little mark for a while on my hand. They stuck it like through a vein on the top of your hand. That hurt worse than the epidural. And so I got the epidural and I was like, oh, that wasn't bad. Like, that was easy. And something that can happen when you get your epidural is that it's all off touch. So when they're doing it, that's why they can paralyze you, and that's why it's such a high risk. It's all based off them feeling like your back. That's why you can't move, can't do any of that. So when they stick in the little like needle thing, it goes in and it can go on either side of your like spinal path or whatever. And so if it's leaning towards one side, that side's going to be more numb than the other side. So that's why a lot of people will say it's not working. It's not that. Like, if you were to roll to the other side, the fluid would float to that side and it would make it more numb. But people don't think like that, and they just stay on that one side, and so one side's completely numb and the other side you can still kind of feel. Okay, so just to sum that up. So I have the epidural. They went to put a catheter in. I didn't really feel it. I was like, well, what do I do if I have to pee? And the doctor was like, oh, well, you're already peeing now. Like, it's really weird. I've never had a catheter since I was 6 months old and had my surgery. So, 6 weeks, sorry, not 6 months. So I guess I was peeing and I had the urge to pee, but I was already peeing. So I didn't like push or anything because I didn't know what would happen. But yeah, it was pretty weird. I was peeing in a bag. That's crazy. Anyways, so after I got that, I just kind of laid in bed. My whole right side was completely numb. I couldn't move my leg or anything. My left side, I could pick up my leg and everything by myself. I could feel on my left side, and that's pretty much where all my cramping was. So eventually I had the anesthesiologist come back in and give me another dosage, and I laid on my left side so that the fluid would go into my left side of my body. After that, I was totally fine. I rested. I was like ready to go. After they gave me the epidural, because you can only get checked a few times once your water breaks because it's immune to bacteria and stuff like that, so you can get an infection. So they only checked me like a few times. I got checked maybe 3 times the whole time I was in labor. So when they checked me, I was 4 centimeters dilated once they first gave me the epidural, and then a few hours later they checked me again and I was 10. So I had the people that I wanted in the room stay and the people that I didn't want in the room out, meaning like the guys and stuff that I didn't want in there, that because I don't want guys looking at, you know, my vaginal area. That's weird. So in the room I ended up having my boyfriend, my boyfriend's grandma that I'm really close with, and then my mom and my mom's ex-girlfriend Yana, which pretty much raised me. Yana's probably watching this, so what's up, Yana? She actually drove from Arizona at 3 o'clock in the morning and made it by the time I gave birth. So props to you. You did it, girl. So proud of you. Anyways, so I got to 10 centimeters dilated, and this was at probably about 12-ish. So it is now a new day. It is the 10th of October. I'm sitting there pushing for 3.5 hours. The baby's head was stuck in the same spot for 3.5 hours. So that was just crazy. I was pushing as hard as I can. His head would go like it was gonna come out, but then it would go right back where it was. So I was honestly going nowhere with these pushes. I have been up for over 24 hours. I am exhausted. I just am not like, I am bawling my eyes out because I'm just trying my hardest and I'm going nowhere in life right now. Like, I am just pushing so hard. By this time, my midwife that I actually had, she was like, well, do you want to try and vacuum him out? And my boyfriend had been vacuumed out when he was born, and it actually pulled like a chunk of his scalp off, and it was just terrible. So him and I had talked, and I was like, I don't want forceps or vacuum or anything. Like, this is something I do not want to do. And by the time I was like, I don't want to do that, like, I just can't do that. And he was like, you know, baby, it's okay, like, let's get him out here, like, let's hold him, like, I want to see him and I know you can do this. And I'm like bawling my eyes out because at this point I'm just like, man, are you kidding me? Like, I just did everything I did not want to do that was on my birth plan. I did not want any pain medicine, not an epidural. I did not want to use forceps or vacuum, and I'm just bawling my eyes out. And so at this time, a whole bunch of doctors come in, and that's like really scary because there was only like 5 people maybe in the delivery room, and then all of a sudden there was like 25 people. So they said that he was gonna come out in one push, and so I'm like, okay, like, I'm gonna do this. And so they put the vacuum on his head or whatever, and so I'm pushing as hard as I can, like, I'm literally pushing as hard as I can, and all of a sudden, like, I can't push anymore, and my body just stopped and like relaxed, and that's when he finally came out. And so I felt everything come out. I felt his head, his shoulders, one at a time. Like, I felt every piece of him come out. Like, it wasn't a painful feeling, but it was the nastiest feeling I've ever felt. Like, no, disgusting. So, I ended up getting 1 stitch, which was crazy because he had such a big head and got stuck, obviously. So they had to use a vacuum. So, 1 stitch, proud of myself, good job, body. So after he came out, he didn't really cry. It was more of like a little tiny noise, almost like a steam pot when it just is about to be ready, and it's like, you know what I mean? Hopefully you do, because that would have been really awkward if you didn't. He gets laid on my chest and I can't even really see him, and my boyfriend's first reaction is like, he looks just like me, because he really does. He looks just like his dad. But whatever, it's okay, his dad's cute, so, you know. He's on my chest and they're wiping him down and he's still not really making any noises, and they're trying to like suction him and all sorts of stuff. And so the whole crew that came in when I told you there was like 25 people in was the NICU crew. I had him on my chest for maybe 2.5 minutes, and they picked him up and put him in a certain crib and were like trying to examine him and stuff like that. When he was born, he was 7 pounds 4 ounces, 4 or 3 ounces, not quite sure. That's terrible that I already forgot. But yeah, I think it's 7'3", so 7 pounds 3 ounces, and he was 21.5 inches tall. So yeah, his dad was actually 21.5 inches tall too, so they were the same height. He ended up going straight down to the NICU so that they can take care of him. He had a heart murmur, he had liquid in his lungs, so he was on a CPAP, which is kind of like a breathing machine. He was under like respiratory distress, and there was something else, I'm not really remember. Oh, the wound on his head was open because there was a blister from the vacuum and the blister popped. So that's what happened. He got straight down to NICU, and I'm sitting in bed because I have an epidural, so I can't follow him. I didn't get to see my baby for like almost a whole 24 hours after he was born. He was born at 3:49 in the morning, and I didn't get to see him until like dang near the next day. So it was really heartbreaking. I'm lucky that Robbie was able to be with him the whole time. Like, my family got to see him and everything, which I'm happy they were there holding his hand and supporting him while I couldn't. It was just like the most miserable, not miserable, but just upsetting experiences I've ever had. I told Robbie I did not want another kid, at least not for a long time, because I'm just traumatized. And it was just heartbreaking because it's like, you want to have that special bond with your child right after they're born, and they're supposed to comfort them and stuff, and I didn't get that. I did not get to hold my kid right after he was born. I had to wait, and I actually had a really rude nurse. She was like, oh, well, we can go see him at NICU, but you have to look through the window. And the other nurses were like, no, she can go in and see her baby. And when you go into the NICU, you have to like wash your hands and stuff and do that. And she's like, well, only one person can touch the baby. And so obviously that one person was going to be me, and it was just me and my mom pushing me around in a wheelchair. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. And I touch him, and I'm just like, I just love him. I'll actually insert a picture right now. Oh, he's growling. Of me seeing him for the first time. After I saw him and stuff, I just went back up to the room. I tried to get sleep, but I couldn't because I'm just like having this rush, and it's already like 7 o'clock in the morning or late. I don't even know. It's the next day pretty much, and at this point I have not slept at all. I maybe had like 3-minute naps, but I was always up, and every 3 hours I was supposed to go down to the NICU and feed him. I was producing the colostrum or something, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like the yellow stuff before your milk comes in. So your milk comes in like 3, maybe 4 days after you give birth. So I'm sitting here trying to pump out that stuff because he would not latch, and he actually had a feeding tube. So I'm pumping stuff so that I can, you know, feed him once that tube is out, and once he's off like the IV sugars, then he would have to eat a lot more. So I'm trying to pump as much as I can. And you have to pump every 3 hours so that your milk supply stays producing. So a few days go by or whatever. I go down every 3 hours to see him. I can finally walk. They let me not be in a wheelchair, which thank God, because I could get down there a whole lot faster. Then a few days in, they told me that he needed to be in isolation. So this is totally off of my whole delivery story. This is more about the hospital adventure that we went through. So if you do not want to continue, that is the end of my delivery story. So now this is just moving on to just the journey that we went through at the hospital. So if you'd like to stay and watch that, then you can continue. Sorry this video is so long, but yeah, it was a long journey. So this is like day 3, day 4 in the hospital. They told me that he needs to be in isolation. He is losing body weight. He isn't eating enough because we had to give him formula because my milk was not producing yet. But anyways, so I ended up giving him formula. I found out that he's lactose intolerant, so we gave him lactose intolerant formula. He was really gassy. He still is a really gassy baby. I have to be dairy free because of him, so I'm not sure if it is the actual dairy that is making him gassy, but yeah, so I'm dairy free because of him. So once they said that he was in isolation, we now had to wash our hands, we had to wear gowns, we had to glove up, we had to do like have our hair up, like it was just a huge mess. And he is in the NICU still. So I do not get to sleep next to my baby. I do not get to have my baby in the same room as me. He's still in NICU. We go down there. He finally has his CPAP off, so the breathing machine. He doesn't have the feeding tube anymore. Now it's just focusing on him eating a lot. He ended up having MRSA in his nose, and if MRSA gets into the lungs of somebody, it can actually kill them. So that's why they were worried about it. MRSA is found in hospitals. It's something that actually shut down hospitals previously in the past. So I'm pretty sure it's from the hospital, or it could be from my water being broken for so long and him being stuck in the birth canal. And he was immune to all those bacteria that were in the room. So we don't know where he got it from. The nurses don't know. But it's probably from the hospital. By this point, I'm just done. I'm exhausted. I haven't slept. My boobs hurt so bad because now my boobs are full of milk. And so I pump and I pump and I pump and I pump. A few days go by. A nurse was like, you know what? Why don't you just pump and you get some sleep? You're down here every 3 hours. You need to rest, sweetheart. And I could not sleep during the day. And it was just terrible. At this point, I was freaking hallucinating because I was so tired. I couldn't focus on somebody because I'd feel like they were moving, or there was so many loud noises going on at one time because everybody was talking. So at this point, I was just so grumpy. I was miserable. I just wanted my freaking kid. Like, I just wanted to hold my baby. They're like, oh, well, you can go home. Do you want to be released today or tomorrow? And I was like, tomorrow, because he was still in NICU. And then they asked me again the next day. And I was like, can we just hold it off one more day because he's still in NICU and I don't want to leave the hospital without him. So they ended up holding it off one day, and they said that they wanted him to go home like the third day that we were there. And they kept saying, oh, maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. But he kept losing weight because he wouldn't eat and he wouldn't latch. By day 7, he finally got to go home. So I got released and discharged. Then while I was packing up all the stuff, Robbie was sitting on the hospital bed, and we get a call, and I just said, hey babe, can you answer the phone? And he's like, yeah, whatever. And so he answers the phone, and it's the NICU nurse, and she says that we need to finish what we're doing. We need to go to the pharmacy and pick up baby's vitamins because he's going home today. And that literally just hit me hard. Like, I knew every single word that the nurse said by Robbie's reaction because he was just so excited. Like, I've never seen him that excited before. And so we hurry up and pack, we grab everything, we're just so excited. We go load the car, then we go down and get his vitamins from the pharmacy, and we head over there because we were having the photographer, the newborn photographer for NICU babies or whatever, go in there and take pictures of him, and he's still in isolation, so clearly it wasn't that big of a deal because they let him just come out with all the other babies there. I don't know, it just bugs me, that whole situation. But anyways, moving on, we get his pictures done, then after we get to take him home, so we put him in his newborn outfit, and then we get to, you know, put him in the car seat and stuff. And the nurse, we had the sweetest nurse in the NICU. She's like, if you ever need anything, just call the NICU and ask for me and I'll tell you. I know it's going to be crazy being new parents, but I promise I will give you all of the advice and help I can give you. And I was like, girl, I love you, man. You're great. But we got to take him home finally, like a week later. He was a pretty good baby. He didn't really, you know, cry much. Since he wouldn't latch, I use this nipple guard thing, and this is actually what it looks like. It's just like a plastic, well, it's not plastic, it's more like rubber, and you suction it to your breast. So this is what I had to use for a very long time because he couldn't find, you know, my nipple or whatever. So I no longer have to use that. He got the whole suctioning thing down and like sucking, so thank goodness, because now I don't have to manhandle him while I'm trying to put that on, and just, it's hectic. So we got to take him home, and he's been great ever since, and I wouldn't change anything. I absolutely love him and adore him, and I am truly blessed to have him and his dad in my life. And he's waking up right now. Yep, let me go get him. So this is him now. He is almost 6 weeks old. He'll be 6 weeks on Tuesday of next week. He just woke up, so he's gonna be a little squirmy and cuddly. Oh, huh. But he is absolutely perfect. I love him with all my heart, huh, Bubba? Huh, and say I'm just a snuggle bug. But yeah, so that is my labor and delivery story. If you guys have any videos that you want to see, anything that you guys want to say, I do reply to all of the comments. So if you guys want to see anything specifically, then let me know. I will do that. And yeah, if you're not already, definitely subscribe. I will be posting more videos now that I'm getting a schedule going on. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye.